recording. Yeah, we can leave it. Okay. Kind of short, so. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight to the Asbury Book Cooperative. We are a member-run independent bookstore. The reason why we're able to do the things we do is because of our members. So if you're interested in becoming a member of the co-op, you can see me afterward, or you can go to our website at asburybookcoop.org, and all the information is there. We're able to also put on events for free, in part because of donations. So I'm just going to pass this around, no pressure if anyone's feeling like it. And then I'll have another one just out here by the register. Books are for sale after the event, so feel free to browse. And yeah, we're very lucky to have you here tonight. So thanks for coming. All right, everybody, I'll take it away.
Thanks, Joe. I am the current president of the New York chapter of Mystery Writers of America. My name's Al Tucker, by the way. And we are, if we do say so ourselves, the premier organization for all things crime fiction or nonfiction. And we have with us a half dozen of our members who are going to read from their works, and it's going to be quite a variety, and I hope you enjoy it. That's enough from me. Let's get started.
No, Al.
Oh.
But everybody should feel free to have a drink before.
Oh, yeah.
Champagne for you.
We have a champagne punch.
We have a champagne mimosa punch and a non-alcoholic punch. Silver ladle is champagne, black label is non-alcoholic, and some lemon cookies cooked by my master of the Southern husband. So please settle in and get comfortable first.
I hope the Zoom audience will feel free to partake virtually. So we will start in a moment. You may have just heard the cork popping as we fortify the champagne punch. The non-alcoholic punch is all ready to go.
Black label is non-alcoholic. Just jump the alcoholic champagne. Should we tell people jokes while we're doing this?
Jokes, yes, I'm.
Awesome. I mean, it's freezing. Like this guy was the first video and say about this one.
Okay. Let's go with our first reader, who is Russ Colchamiro, who is the author of the sci-fi noir novels Crackle and Fire and Fractured Lives, the first two books featuring hard-boiled intergalactic private eye Angela Hardwick. The third novel in the series, Hot Ash, debuts September 2022. A member of the Mystery Writers of America, Private Eye Writers of America, and Crazy 8 Press, Russ is also the author of the SFF novels Crossline, Finders Keepers, Genius to Milo, and Astropalooza. Editor of the sci-fi mystery anthology Love, Murder, and Mayhem, co-author and editor of the noir anthology Murder in Montague Falls, and he has contributed to numerous anthologies. He also hosts Russ's Rock and Roller Coaster podcast, interviewing a who's who of science fiction, crime, mystery, and horror authors. You can follow him on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at AuthorDudeRuss, and on his website, russcolchamiro.com. Russ, take it away.
A little bit. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Russ Colchamiro. As Al just said, I write a combination of science fiction and mystery. I have a series that's been out for the last few years featuring an intergalactic Private Eye, Angela Hardwick, if you like things like Blade Runner or Doctor Who, if you like I like to think that Angela Hardwick is sort of the spiritual cousin of the books like by J.D. Robb. She might not agree. I don't know. I haven't asked her, but I think she is. So, but that's just sort of like the gist of what I'm up to. If that helps you. So, all right. So here we go. All right. So Crackle and Fire was book 1. Fractured Lives is book 2, which I'll be reading from, and Hot Ash, the 3rd book, will be out in September, and it's available for pre-order on ebook. All right. All right. When you're a private eye like me, nobody's all one thing, all one way. Moment to moment, we might be living any number of personalities, and sometimes all at once. There's the shy me, the loud me, the silly me, the naughty me, the forgiving me, the merciless me, mother, daughter, lover, friend, enemy. The private investigator who skulks through back alleys and seedy bars, the one who investigates android murders, shapeshifters, disfigured wormholes, alternate dimensions, and a miles-long helix of the universe's DNA. Yet the multitude of forces of that very universe and all of its imperfections condition us to deny our desperate, raging contradictions, our mystifying inconsistencies that can drive us stark raving mad if we let them. Who among us can claim with certitude that the person we reveal to others at any one moment in time and space is the unconditional and multi-layered person we actually are? Not me. Which is why when Wanda Fine knocked on my office door and told me she needed my help to find her 18-year-old daughter, Darla, a college freshman, I was skeptical, but kept an open mind. I've worked my share of runaway cases. Sometimes I find the kid, sometimes not. And in cases when the poor kid turns up dead, beaten, or worse, the parents almost wish they'd never had me look in the first place. Then again, who am I of all people to deny any parent their right to hope and dream for a joyful outcome, as unrealistic as it might be? Look what happened to me. My son Owen was lost to me. Then he came back, maybe better than he was when he left. I'm telling you, it never happens that way. Never, ever, until it does. Mrs. Fine, I don't want to downplay your concern, I say, and immediately spot her own inconsistencies. A missing child can be scary business. Believe me, I know. Late 30s, early 40s, Wanda is a lovely woman, light brown skin with golden undertones, cocaine white teeth, and raised glowing cheekbones. She met me here in her showcase outfit, white satin blouse with beige knee-length skirt, peep-toe ankle strap sandals, beautifully manicured nails with eggshell gloss, and her handbag is designer all the way. But her pearl earrings are fake. Excellent fakes, but fakes nonetheless. And her bob haircut, which is quite flattering, is fresh, as if she had it done especially for this meeting. Even though I spend countless hours mired in physical, emotional, psychological, and cosmological filth, it doesn't mean I'm not a woman underneath it all. I appreciate wanting to look your best in front of a stranger. As a private eye, I used to go all pinstripes, sharp angles, and fedora, but I've shifted my approach. Maybe it's my renewed sense of motherhood, maybe it was just time. But now my standard gear is blue jeans, black sneakers, and a arugula-colored utility jacket with inner mesh lining that's stylish and flexible enough for my needs. And with all the changes in E-Town lately, that's her core city, standard combustion engine electric cars slowly being converted into hover vehicles, a realm-wide monorail coming online, new Android models being introduced, it's difficult not to focus on your appearance more than ever. It's an element of your life you can control. If that's the case with Wanda, then she's going to great lengths to advertise the kind of woman she wants me to think she is. Her way of communicating that she wants very much for me to take her seriously, that her daughter has legitimately run away, but fears I'll reject those claims because Wanda's been rejected before and can't bear to be turned away again. But at 18, I say, Darla's legally an adult, so even if she's missing, if her whereabouts are unknown to you, technically, she's not a runaway. Have you filed a police report? Sitting knees together, hands folded atop her purse, Wanda Fine's mind is swirling. She has that look, as if she's debating how much to share with me and how she should do it, afraid to say the words out loud, but desperate for help. To the side of us is a circular table with various files, receipts, maps, notepads, hollow messages, and new VR goggles. Behind Wanda is the door to my second floor office. My name stencils in black letters on frosted glass, Angela Hardwick, Private Investigations. She says finally, her voice unsteady, my husband and I were, Darla's been, Wanda's holding her breath, her chest tight to the point I'm afraid she might pass out. When was the last time you saw her? Through pursed lips, she exhales. Though her makeup is impeccable, no amount of blush can hide the weariness behind her eyes. About 3 weeks ago. Does she live at home? No, I'm sorry, I should have said she lives on campus. Which one? The Roland School of Celestial Design. She used to come home every week or so, but lately, celestial design, missing teen, complicated from the start. I'm sorry if this comes across the wrong way, Mrs. Fine, but if I got paid for every college kid, freshman in particular, that didn't call home on a regular basis, I could afford my own Galaxy cruiser. Does she travel throughout the realm? College kids are big on road trips. Wanda reaches into her purse for a tissue. She dabs at the corner of her left eye. Left eye? No, she says, I don't know, but her suite mate said she's been on campus. I'm sorry, I say, confused. I thought you said she was missing. She is, Miss Hardwick, in every way that matters. It's just, you have no idea what it's like. Darla, she was such a, and now she's, when you've been halfway across the cosmos and back, when you've seen the kinds of chaos and existential madness that can befall someone, anyone, even an entire galaxy, ripping apart the fabric of time, space, and dimension, those experiences are imprinted on your soul. And yet deciphering the mechanics of the universe is easy peasy lemon squeezy compared with the mystery of teenage girls. I know, I used to be one. Not me, of course. I don't know what you're asking me, Mrs. Fine. If Darla's at school, there's no one to find. It's not a missing person, she clarifies. Dusty sunlight filters through drawn window shades, crawling along the hardwood floor. It's a robbery, a theft, a desecration. What theft? Wanda Fine comports herself, her eyes cold and hardened and brimming with pain. Someone's stolen a piece of Darla's soul, and I need you to get it back. All right, that's what I got. Sorry, I just left. If anyone's interested, I do host a weekly podcast, and I've had many folks from the mystery writers on the show, including Al and others. I've got a mailing list if you want to be included on the updates.
Okay, thanks, Russ. Good start. Next up is Nev March, who was born in Mumbai, India. She's a writer of mystery and historical fiction, writing short stories, poems, and novels since the age of 11. Nev has previously published stories in children's magazines and won Writer's Digest and Maryland Writers Association contests. With 4 completed manuscripts, she took a hiatus from writing fiction in order to raise her family while working full-time. As a member of the small Zoroastrian community, she created a community oral history project to record stories of Zoroastrian immigrants to North America. After a 20-year career as a data scientist, Nev returned to writing full-time in 2015 to write the first draft of Murder in Old Bombay. Her manuscript won the 2019 Mystery Writers of America Minotaur Books First Novel Award, which launched her writing career. Nev has written and edited for Fazana Journal, a community publication, and is an active member of the Hunterdon County Library's Write Group. She lives in New Jersey with her husband and 2 sons. Nev?
Thank you. Okay, I'm one of those vertically challenged people. I need to move this thing because not even my glasses can be seen on the camera. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Need some muscle. Thank you, Al. And thank you all for having me. And thank you, Asbury Park Bookstore, for this lovely opportunity. We so rarely do in-person events. I just wanted to say thank you. So yeah, Murder in Old Bombay was the first book that I got published. I had written stuff before, but never had the courage really to market it. And so I have now this Indian mixed race, half Indian, half British detective. And in Murder in Old Bombay, he finds his love interest. And at the end of that book, I'm going to tell you because it's necessary for you to understand this book, they leave India and go to Boston. And then I'm actually going to read a little bit of chapter 3 to you. So all that's happened in chapter 1 and 2, well, a few things have happened, but the thing you must know is that Captain Jim, the detective, is missing. He has disappeared. So we're going to hear from his wife, Diana. So chapter 3 goes Revelations. I had no appetite for breakfast the next morning, but unfolding the translation, okay, this I have to give you one more disclaimer. What translation? In the first 2 chapters, she got hold of something that seemed suspicious. She got a clue essentially, but it bore the 3 deadly words, tell no one. So now she's looking at it. I had no appetite for breakfast the next morning, but unfolded the translation on my kitchen table and examined it. What would Jim see? The first page described the writer's travels, train rides to Philadelphia and New York, then the difficulty of locating people he'd been told to see. The writer had gone to a factory in Cheswick, Pennsylvania, to find a fellow he knew, a brother of Ulf, but the brother would not help him. The writer seemed bitter about that. Then came a series of phrases from the page that had been torn lengthwise. Most of these were names of chemicals, curious scientific terms with dire warnings about burning, blisters, avoiding contact with air or water. I stared at the line that said, 800 pounds of fine crystalline powder, ballastite, suitable sources located. I struck a bargain with hair. Oh, Jim, what have you got mixed up in? Only silence replied. Despite my noisy, happy childhood, I knew the voice of silence. Then I could not wait to run next door to visit Sanobar, my impish 14-year-old neighbor. Only a year older than me, she invented games and puzzles like Joe March and Little Women, climbing trees and shimmying up walls for adventure. Giggling, we decided we would marry the Wadia brothers so that we could live together in the same house. But then she fell ill, and I wasn't permitted to visit for days. In a whisper, Mama spoke the word cholera. Sanobar's home was quarantined, a basket lowered for food and supplies each morning into which I slipped letters crammed with my questions. Days later, I heard wailing from her home and knew. During the 4 days of her funeral prayers, a weight pressed upon my chest. The ritual chanting faded as I imagined her sitting beside me, her expressive eyes telling me it was up to me now. I had to live for both of us. Silence can speak. It insists, and it will not be ignored. The next week, I told Papa I wanted to study in England like my brother Adi, who'd gone there the year before. It took months of persuading and pleading until he finally agreed. Losing my sweet Sanobar had shunted my life onto a new track. A knock on the door interrupted my reverie. Who could it be on a Sunday? Puzzled, I opened to find Tobias Brown in the corridor, standing well back from the door. He'd brought Jim's wages. Thank you, I said evenly, accepting the envelope from the colored man. Any word from Jim? I asked him that every week. He must have noticed my present malaise, for he hesitated. No, Mrs. He must not know much, or was told to reveal nothing. Disturbed by the strange German letter, my composure frayed. Should I invite him in? In India, it would not be appropriate, but here? His earnest, creased face and tufted silver hair reassured me. He'd always treated me with careful respect. Would you like some tea? I asked. His eyes widened, then he smiled. That's very kind of you, ma'am, but I think not. I stepped closer. Tobias, I'm afraid for Jim. Have you heard anything about him? Tobias looked down. Jim needed the translated letter, so I'd planned to mail him my transcription. Should I send it to his employer, Dupre, instead? Yet Jim had written, tell no one. Step inside a moment, Tobias, I must speak with you. Yes, Mrs. Scraping off his shoes on the doorstop, he came reluctantly. Please, call me Diana. Yes, Lady Diana. He smiled, then pulling in his lips. He knew something, I was sure of it. Where is Jim, Tobias? Despite my best intentions, my worries spilled out, gathering steam like a locomotive. Pulling from the station, they chugged out each car, dragging the rest. Once moving, I could not contain them. He's been injured so many times, just 6 months in Boston, and they sent him off alone. How can he manage? He's a good detective, God knows, but this could be beyond him. Why didn't they send someone else? Slowly, Tobias said, I believe they did, ma'am. I recalled Jim's words before he left. Jim mentioned Mr. Arnold Baldwin. Tobias turned his deep, sad gaze on me. Yes, ma'am, it was Mr. Baldwin's assignment, but I'm afraid he's no more. The floor seemed to tilt under my feet. He's dead. Mom, he was killed some weeks ago. Murdered. Baldwin had been murdered, and no word from Jim. I steadied myself and asked, is it common in your business that an operative is gone for 5 weeks? Tobias opened and closed his mouth. What wasn't he telling me? I'm just the porter, Mom. Then you see everybody coming and going every day. He blinked. To be gone that long without word, that's not common, no. Jim had mailed the letter to Grimke 2 weeks ago at most. Urgency propelled me like a hand against my back. I must find him, but how? Shifting from one foot to the other, Tobias said, you could ask the Dupreys, Mom, Mr. Alfred, who built the agency, and his son, Mr. Peter. And we'll stop there. And yeah, it is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and elsewhere.
Thanks, Ned. Okay, next up is Jeff Markowitz at jeffmarkowitz.com. He's the author of 6 mysteries, including the award-winning dark comedy Death and White Diamonds. Jeff spent more than 40 years creating community-based programs and services in New Jersey for children and adults with autism, including 25 years as president and executive director of the Life Skills Resource Center, before retiring in 2018 to devote more time to writing. In October 2021, a puzzle hint based on Jeff's novella, Motive for Murder, raised more than $1 million for at-risk children in New York City. His short story, The Black and White Cookie, can be found in the anthology Jewish Noir 2, to be published in August of 2022. Jeff is a past president of the New York chapter of Mystery Writers of America. We had a coup. He lives in Monmouth Junction, New Jersey, with his wife Carol and 2 cats, Virgil and Aeneas. Jeff.
Good evening. Appreciate Bookstore letting us come read tonight. I want to thank everyone for being here. It's kind of fun to actually see people and read someplace where there's actual human beings. So that's kind of fun. I'm going to be reading from my new short story, The Black and White Cookie, which, as I mentioned, is in the anthology Jewish Noir 2. Some of you may know this anthology has been beaten by the pandemic for nearly 2 years. It was originally supposed to be released 2 years ago. It's coming out August 23rd. My story's a little too long to read the whole thing, so I'm going to read just enough to hopefully make you decide you really need to buy the book so you can find out what happens. As I said, the title is The Black and White Cookie. He was a city boy, born and bred, but when his wife told him he was going to be a father, he made a decision. His son would grow up in the suburbs. It didn't take him long to find what he was looking for, a 3-bedroom, 1-bath ranch house, one of 1,000 identical ranch houses sprouting in the fertile soil that had until recently been a potato farm. He told no one of his plans. When his wife went into labor, he called the doctor, took a last look around the apartment, and drove her to the hospital. 3 days later, he put his wife and baby son in the car and drove them to their new home. It was the suburbs, but just barely, 1.55 miles from the city's easternmost border. And every day, he made the commute from his home in the suburbs through the outer boroughs to his job in the city, traffic getting heavier day by day, year by year. He didn't mind the commute. It was, he knew, a small price to pay so that his son could grow up with a backyard. Well, not so small a price, he decided when he thought about the toll. You see, there were thousands of men just like this one, tens of thousands, with their job in the city and their home in the suburbs. The toll booth went up at mile marker 1. If you wanted to get to your job in the city, it would cost you a dime. If you wanted to drive back to your home in the suburbs at night, it would cost another dime. He did the math, 10 cents a trip, 20 cents a day. That's $1 a week, $50 each year, accounting for his 2-week vacation. And so every morning, he would bypass the highway entrance at mile marker 1.55, working his way through the neat little neighborhoods, getting on the highway 1 exit closer to his job in the city. And every evening, coming home, he would get off the highway 1 exit early and make his way through those same neat little neighborhoods. My earliest memories are of my father coming home after a long day on the job. He would pull his car into the driveway and walk into the house, a briefcase in his right hand, in his left, hidden behind his back, a simple brown paper bag. He would pretend that he had forgotten, and I would play along, knowing that my father would never let me down. It was a ritual that played out throughout my childhood. Some days the anticipation was almost more than I could bear, but with a flourish, my father would pull the bag from behind his back and reveal the treasure within, the near perfect combination of shortbread and icing known as the black and white cookie. As the name suggests, one icing was not enough for this bakery masterpiece. Black icing and white icing side by side. You could write a doctoral dissertation on how people ate the cookie. Me, first I ate the shortbread off the bottom, leaving only icing. Next, I ate the white icing, delaying gratification before savoring each bite of the remaining black icing. I was approaching my 13th birthday, studying for my bar mitzvah. Dad continued to bring home the brown paper bag, but he would make me wait until I had completed my lessons before he offered up the cookie. And then one day, he didn't. I don't mean he didn't bring me a cookie. I mean, he didn't come home. That was the worst night of my short life until the next night, and the night after that, and every night that summer. I grilled my mother. It was cruel, but I had learned in school about the 5 W's, and I was determined to make good use of my education. I knew the who, but the what, where, when, and why were a mystery to me. Where's Dad?
Thanks, Jeff. Fortunately, we do have cookies. Thanks to our next reader, Erica Obi, who is the author of Dazzle Paint, as well as 4 other historical and paranormal novels, including the award-winning The Curse of the Braddock Brides. Erica is the immediate past president of the MWANY chapter. She holds a PhD in comparative literature and published academic work on female folklorists before she decided she'd rather be writing the stories herself. Still, she keeps the finger in the academic pie by blogging about old books, gardens, and old books about gardens. At www.ericaobi.com. Erica will be reading from her forthcoming book, The Brooklyn North Murders, which is the launch of an offbeat traditional series featuring librarian Mary Watson and her sidekick Doyle, who is an AI bot who thinks he can solve murder mysteries. Okay, Erica.
Give you that whole setup. Oh, okay, I think good. All right, so this is chapter 1 of the Brooklyn North Murders, which is also, in case you didn't guess, about gentrification in the Hudson Valley. Not a fan. This is chapter 1, Custody of the Eyes. Custody of the eyes. Up until now, it had been an abstract concept
I had associated with the medieval and theology sections of the library where I worked. Now it was a practical challenge. Who knew how hard it was not to look at the tiny red Speedo being worn by the man who had pulled me close for our triathlon team photo? Only a year ago, this triathlon had been the Morgansburg annual fun run and consisted of a single lap around Battlefield Bluff. Now, it was the Billings Sprint Challenge series and had apparently attracted the combined populations of Brooklyn and Poughkeepsie via a social media campaign that had pronounced it one of the 10 summer events in the Hudson Valley not to be missed. The transformation, the rebranding, was also the reason why I was shivering by the edge of an icy lake at the ungodly hour of 8 in the morning, trying not to examine the all too evident assets that a hedge fund manager named Cam Billings was scarcely hiding beneath that red Speedo. I was not wearing a swimsuit or even a wetsuit. I had managed to weasel my way out of the swim by claiming a rotator cuff injury, and so was wearing running tights and a reasonably warm wind shirt. It's not that I can't swim. A summer camp instructor who fancied herself a Navy SEAL made sure of that. But that statement only holds true if you consider the dog paddle a recognized stroke of the US Swimming Association. I'm not particularly good with a bicycle either. Toe clips remain an enigma. My mechanical abilities begin and end with forcibly rebooting a computer. But as the hot tech star destined to transfer Morgansburg, New York into the next Silicon Valley, I was expected to represent DeSalles College, and so I was taking the last leg of the college relay team. All that was required of me was that same brisk trot around the Battlefield Bluff as last year's fun run. My athletic abilities are as limited as my mechanical ones. I walk, run, and hike, all activities that require no more skill than putting one foot in front of the other. Paul Morgan flanked me on the other side. He was wearing a pair of bicycling shorts that did little more to disguise his assets than Cam's had. But I didn't have to imagine what lay beneath that thin lycra barrier. Paul and I had dated during our first year at Yale, back in the days when having sex seemed to be the done thing. Victorian brides were taught to lie back and think of England. I lay back and rehearsed conjunctions and declensions in my head in order to pass the time. Our relationship fizzled out somewhere around the Greek middle voice. And everyone, before you throw the pity party for him, it's an ex-boyfriend, okay? That didn't stop him from grabbing me in a bear hug as he said, look, after the swim, I need to be ready to tag in the changing area. So can you go ahead and get some video of Cam when he comes out of the water for the real-time followers? Real-time followers? Who would really sit down and watch this in real time on their phone? My mother? I regret to inform you that Helen Watson is not among the 12,467 subscribers to the Sprint Series webcast, Doyle informed me. It was a rhetorical question. My mother was not what you'd call a doting parent. When I presented her with a copy of my published dissertation, she had asked, what do you want me to do with this? The response I squelched was unprintable. Okay, so I was complaining to my phone. Pretty weird, I suppose, at least if you've been living off the grid for the past 5 years. Some people talk to Siri, some talk to Alexa. Hell, my 90-year-old grandmother binge drinks cosmopolitanisms with them while they cheat at online bridge. So sue me if I talk to Doyle. Granted, Doyle was different from those virtual assistants he dismissed as the code girls. For one thing, the girls simply crawled the web and retrieved data. Doyle didn't crawl, he extrapolated. Or as Doyle would put it, the code girls were artificial intelligence. He was the real thing. I'm not so sure. For one thing, I'm the one who programmed Doyle. I know where the bodies are buried, or to put it in programmer speak, I am aware of a few significant glitches that need working out. Primary among them is the fact that Doyle is a complete and utter ass.
Thanks, Erica. Let me do a little housekeeping here. Okay, our next reader is Amy M. Reed, who is the USA Today and Wall Street Journal best-selling author of cozy, historical, and Gothic mysteries. A former practicing attorney, Amy discovered a passion for fiction writing and has never looked back. She has so far penned 3 standalone Gothic mysteries, the Malice series of Gothic novels, the Juniper Junction Holiday Mystery Series, the Libraries of the World Mystery Series, and the Cape May Historical Mystery Collection. In addition to writing, she loves to read and cook and travel. Amy lives in New Jersey and is a member of Mystery Writers of America and Sisters in Crime. You can find out more on her website at www.amymreed.com. Amy.
Hi, thank you for having me here, and it's great to see people show up on such a hot night to come outside and listen to us read. So thank you very much. I'm reading from Cape Menace, which is the first book in the Cape May Historical Mystery Collection. This is a collection of standalone historical mysteries, all set in and around Cape May, New Jersey, and they take place about every 40 to 50 years, and there's nothing except the setting that ties these books together. So there are no characters that continue out through the collection. There are no plot lines, anything like that. So the first book takes place in 1714, and I am going to read the little bit of chapter 2, which actually takes place in 1712. 4th December, 1712. The day Mama disappeared, she had been feeling unwell. After harvesting the remainder of the root vegetables from the garden before the ground was frozen solid for the winter, we wrote a letter to Grandmama, Mama's mother, in England. We told her of the rapidly approaching winter weather, but I forgot long ago what else was in the letter. Now I'm going to fast forward a little bit, and what you have missed is the main character, Sarah, going to town with her best friend, Patience, where they mail the letter. And at that time, letters were collected in the tavern, like a local tavern, and held until a ship or horseback rider came through to deliver the letter to wherever it happened to be going, whether Philadelphia or in this case, England. When I arrived back at our house, Mama wasn't there. I didn't worry at the time because there were many reasons she could have gone. Often she would leave to attend a sick neighbor or help Widow Beale with her chores. Goodman Beale, a fisherman, had recently been lost at sea, leaving his poor wife with 8 children and few means. Or Mama could have gone out to pick herbs, which she often did. Though Papa was the apothecary, Mama was a skilled herbalist in her own right, and she spent a great deal of her time preparing remedies and tinctures for those who needed medicines. I set about preparing the dinner we usually had at midday. Papa would be in soon and would be very hungry. I was surprised that Mama hadn't prepared the potatoes and the hearth ashes before she had left the house. Mama still wasn't home when Papa came in a short time later. He had to get back to work, he said, so he wouldn't wait for her to eat his meal. I decided to wait for her to return before eating. After Papa left, I cleared off the table and stacked his trencher away. I sat down to begin the mending in the basket near the hearth. I worked for several hours as the light outside began to wane and the shadows shifted inside the house. Still no word from Mama, but I wasn't worried yet. Early in the evening, after darkness had fallen, Papa came back into the house. I had fixed supper and we ate together. It would be the first of countless meals we would eat without Mama, but we didn't know that yet. I'm not worried, Papa assured me, but his eyes belied his words. Mama had never simply gone away and not told Papa or me where she was going, and she certainly had never stayed away after dark. Papa pushed himself away from the table after our silent, listless meal and took his hat and cloak from the hook near the door. I'm going to Widow Beale's to see if Mama is there. I nodded, turning away from him so he couldn't see the fear in my eyes, couldn't hear my breathing becoming shallower faster. I didn't want him to think I was silly. After an hour, Papa came home. He opened the door slowly. I looked up from where I sat by the fire, expecting to see Mama follow him through the door, but he was alone. He looked at me solemnly, his eyes strained and worried. She hasn't been at Widow Beale's at all today. Do you think she went into town for some reason? Papa stroked his beard, not without telling one of us. He was silent for a few moments, then seemed to come to a decision. I'm going to see Daniel Ames. He'll help me look for her. Patience's father was a kind man, always willing to help a neighbor in need. We'll gather a few more men and spread out. What should I do? I didn't want to be idle while Papa was out looking. He looked around searchingly as if Mama would appear at any moment from behind the bedchamber curtain. He closed his eyes and rubbed his beard again. Wait for her here. I don't want her to find us both gone when she comes back. I didn't know what to do while I waited, so I sat, staring at the flames, straining my ears for the sound of a footfall outside. But I heard nothing except faraway shouts, shouts I knew were from the men helping Papa look for my mother. Ruth! Ruth, they called over and over. I finally put my hands over my ears. I couldn't bear the thought of Mama lying somewhere, hurt or sick, unable to answer their cries. Where had she gone? My stomach was twisted into knots. I stood and paced the room, peering uselessly into the darkness each time I passed the window, hoping I would see her running lightly up the path to the door, her cloak billowing behind her, a lantern swinging gently in her hand. But I saw nothing, nothing but darkness. It was hours before Papa came home again. This time, Goodwife Ames came with him. I raised my eyebrows in question. Eliza Ames is going to stay with you tonight, Sarah. I'm going back out with Daniel and some of the other men from the village, and we're going to keep looking for your mother. You need to get some sleep. He took another lantern and 2 candles from the shelf above the fireplace and was out the door again before I could ask any questions. I looked at Goodwife Ames, not knowing what to say. She obviously didn't know what to say either, but she tried. I'm sure Ruth just became lost looking for herbs. They're bound to find her. I didn't tell her what I was thinking. Mama never got lost. She knew her way around the forest with her eyes closed. Or maybe she's helping a neighbor, Goody Ames suggested feebly. She knew as well as I that my mother could have heard the men shouting for her from any of the neighbors' houses. There was only one explanation. She was gone. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. And now our final reader of the evening is Vicki Weisfeld. Some 30 of her short stories have appeared in leading mystery magazines and anthologies, winning awards from the Short Mystery Fiction Society and the Public Safety Writers Association. Her first mystery thriller, Architect of Courage, was published in June of 2022 by Black Opal Books to a warm reception. She is a reviewer for the UK website crimefictionlover.com and blogs at www.vweisfeld.com. Vicki.
Thank you all.
Thanks to the people at the cooperative and to the audience for coming. And I'll try to do this. There I am. So I'm going to read a little bit from about halfway through this novel, because I've read the beginning to several audiences, and I can just quickly sum that up. It starts with a Manhattan architect, a successful guy named Archer Landis, visiting his mistress in her apartment and finding her shot dead. This is on page 1, so it's not a big spoiler. And things in his life kind of go downhill from there. So this part of the story is in the middle of the summer, and he's having his corporate picnic. He's not one of these guys, you know, a lot of times you have a amateur sleuth and who doesn't seem to have any kind of a life. You know, he's got all this time to go following clues and this and that. Archer Landis is a successful guy. He's got architecture on offices all over the world. And so he really can't ignore that. So he's trying to balance these things and have a rounded life. Meantime, he's coping with the losses and the dangers to him. So he has a hard job of work. "You're early," Landis said when Deshandra and her roommates arrived at the beach house Sunday morning. "We came to help," said Deshandra, just as her roommate said, "to beat the traffic." With the caterers commandeering the kitchen, they pulled on swimsuits and wandered down to the ocean. It would be a healing day for his staff. Julia's murder, then the 2 episodes of violence in their own office, the second so horribly tragic, all flew out of the stuff you hear about pigeonhole, not this summer. By 11, the other guests were trickling in, and soon children's shrieks filled the air as the ocean pulled them toward the mild surf. Kids raced their dads to the water, their skinny young legs churning. Pale-skinned mothers followed, city women who worked, basking in the fluorescent light of law firms and public relations offices. They arranged themselves sociably under Landis's striped umbrellas. Around noon, the caterers carried the food out, and the guests swarmed up over the dunes, trailing sand. Towel-wrapped kids with seawater-plastered hair shivered in the shade while moms fixed plates for them. The men parked sweating beers under their arms so they could hold their plates in one hand and use the other to pile up the clam and oyster shells. They schmoozed each other and the old-timers manning the shucking station. Laughter and conversation crowded the air. Marjorie knew the kids' names and remembered where their spouses worked. She'd flowed through the crowd like water, taking used plates, talking to children, leaving cheerful faces in her wake. In his guests' lingering glances and the thoughtful expressions before they remembered to smile at him, he sensed they missed her too. As if by unspoken agreement, they appeared determined to enjoy the day and each other for his benefit as well as their own. He stared out to sea, grateful. O'Hanlon came to stand beside him. "I should have been coming out here, not hanging around the apartment all summer," Landis said. "It's really..." A noise erupted behind them, and a boy of about 7 vomited on the deck. "Christ, no. I'll grab the hose. Be cleared up in a right minute," O'Hanlon said loudly to the people quick stepping aside. For Landis's ears, he added, "The dad's scarlet," as the boy's father disengaged from a knot of men, muttering apologies. Landis said something supportive and patted the father on his back. Before O'Hanlon could put the hose away, 2 more children were sick. A few adults swayed, hands on stomachs. Within seconds, a woman ran into the big rented restroom, covering her mouth, and another vomited into a bayberry. O'Hanlon glanced warily at the shuckers, idle now. "My neighbor's a doctor, I'll call him," Landis said. "My stomach hurts," a child wailed in the sudden silence. Aaron Katz came at once, dressed in flamingo patterned shorts, pink shirt, and sandals that revealed toes gnarly as twigs. But he carried his doctor's bag. His cheerful, bustling manner reassured the parents, and he enlisted them in spreading dry beach towels on the shady side of the deck, far from the food. He laid the growing number of his patients on them. "We'll get answered," he announced, "but we won't get ahead of ourselves." While Landis handed out water bottles, Cat shooed unaffected guests away like pigeons, encouraging them to go down to the beach and let the sick ones rest. A half hour passed with no additions to the improvised sick bay. Landis sat to the side, watching, hardly blinking, not knowing what to think. The shouts and squeals of happy children down at the beach rebuked him. Somehow he had spoiled the day. Katz motioned Landis to join him in a private corner of the deck. He punched a number into his phone, and as he waited, he threw an arm around Landis's shoulder. "County epidemiologist," he said. "Tony, Aaron Katz here. How's your holiday?" He listened. "We've got a tricky episode here, a picnic that ended up with 19 people down, 10% case rate, 12 kids and 7 adults. None serious enough for the hospital, but a couple kids are damn green. I've got my eye on them. We're rehydrating." Again, he listened. Right, it could be foodborne. They had a caterer and a raw bar. That's why my people never eat the stuff. Could be a problem in the ocean water, but I don't think so, or more would be sick. You people check that all the time, right? That's what we pay you for. I've got them vomiting into the bushes, so you'll have something to work with. Oh, and Tony, the adults, all women, all on the small side. Cat Smith Landis's eyes and gave his shoulder a squeeze, saying into the phone, got it. Food into the refrigeration, save the trash. When will your boys be out? He listened to a lengthy response. Oh, one thing, Tony, it doesn't quite look like food poisoning to me. Other than the obvious, the symptoms don't line up. Be sure your guys test the full range of toxins. Deliberate? How the hell should I know? Tony, thanks. He ended the call. You heard all that? He repeated the epidemiologist. I knew I wouldn't get the second time. Epidemiologist's instructions anyway. And get the names of the shuckers and all the catering people who were at the house. Will do, Landis said, but what did you mean deliberate? Here? Landis perched on the deck rail watched by his guests. These people count on me, they're kids. Wait for the test results. I'm going back to my patients. Katz's upbeat manner hadn't changed, but his searching black eyes were serious. He removed his arm from Landis's shoulder and bounded across the deck. O'Hanlon came alongside. Looks like he has it well in hand. Could be. Landis kept his voice low and shoved his hands in his pockets. He thinks it was deliberate. You're slagging me, man. They'll test for everything.
Thanks, Vicky, and I'm glad we went with the cookies instead of the shellfish option. That's our show for tonight. Thanks to the readers for sharing your work with us. Thanks to the audience for coming. We hope you enjoyed it. And thanks especially to the Asbury Book Co-op for having us in their great new space, which everyone should come and see on Cookman Avenue. And we'll see you next time.